Let's read the 26 books I picked to read from my TBR to read in 2026. This is part 1, and I picked 3 books that I want to read in this vlog. King of Scars and Heart Bay Book 1 and 2. So, one fantasy novel by Lee Bardugo and 2 books that are romantic suspense written by the German author Stephanie Ross. This was book 2 and this is book 3. I found out now that there is a 4th book in the series that I didn't know about. I thought I can finish the series in this vlog, but I won't. I will read book 4 probably for the next final chapter blog. We'll see. It depends on how fast I can read these 3 books. But I already started with Hard Bay Book 2. It is called Mörderische Geschäfte, so loosely translated Murderous Business. And it is all set in Hard Bay, which is a fictional small town on the coast of the Atlantic, so based in the US. And I can't really tell you much about book 1 because I've read this book 10 years ago. The only thing I can remember is that the female main character was called Sabrina, like me. But we have a different couple now, so I thought it is not necessary to reread book 1. And now, halfway through book 2, I can say I should have probably reread book 1 because it would have added to the bigger plot of the series. Because somebody tries to murder the main characters of the series. The 3 men are friends since childhood. They grew up in Hard Bay, and in their childhood, they saw something that they shouldn't have seen, but they can't really remember about it. They never talked about it. They don't really know what they have seen, but somebody was murdered back then. And now the murderer fears that now, as all the men are back together in Hard Bay, they will figure out what happened back then and who murdered Iris. So he or she tries to prevent that and wants to kill these men. That's the bigger plot for the whole series. And in this book, we focus on Trish and Ash. The whole small town wants to see them together, so they really focus on forced proximity here to get them together. But Ash and Trish itself, they are not so sure about it. And they really try their best to work against these tries to get them together. But of course, there is some tension, there is banter, and as it is romantic suspense, we can already guess that they will get together in the end. But the main reason for Ash to be back in his hometown is that his father died. A father that he hasn't had the best relationship with. So he is really surprised that his father left him the family business, a big company that secures a lot of jobs for the small town. But the business is not doing well. Trish, the female main character, works for this business. And now they need to figure out why this business doesn't go that well. Something is very shady there. Like if somebody is pulling money from this business who is not supposed to do that. So that is the suspense plot here, and I'm enjoying my time with it. Yes, it is noticeable that this book is 10 years old. Some of the thoughts here of the characters or what they say is misogynistic and wouldn't be said or written like this today, which shows how much the genre changed in the last 10 years and that we got more sensitive about certain topics, which I really appreciate. But all in all, this book is super solid. As I said, I enjoyed my time with it and I can't wait to continue and find out who's behind the murder of Iris. I hope they can catch him or her. So I will continue reading now and I will talk to you after I finished this book. And I already finished the first book for this vlog. The first book from my February TBR on February 1st. And I can say it wasn't the best book in the world, but I didn't expect that. I was entertained by the series. It was a pretty quick read for me because I've read the second half of the book yesterday, starting in the afternoon and ending around 11 p.m., while I watched some TV in the middle of that. So the love story was, of course, no surprise at all. But we had some plot twists in the suspense plot here. And the crime that happened here was much bigger in the end than I expected in the start of the story. We had some people visiting from other series, so especially from the Degrassi series by the same author. And I really like that. I like these Easter eggs and seeing characters from other series. So that made me happy. And the closer we got to the finale of the story, we got more and more action, more and more tension, and I loved that. Not a lot of spice here, but that wasn't needed. And I'm really glad that I've read the book now. That was on my TBR since 2017, so 9 years. Like book 3 of the series, which I will read next. I'm very intrigued to read more of the hard-based series because the overall plot of the series and the suspense plot got more intense, and I'm really interested to read more. So I will come back to you after I am halfway through book 3 of the series. Before I continue today, I want to give you an update on Hard Bay Book 3. I am now halfway through the book, and the first half was a super fast read. I'm really glad that I continued the series right away, and I will continue the series right after that, but for another video, because book 4 is not on my 26 for 2026 list. So you have to wait a little bit to see my opinion on that. But before I read the second half of Hard Bay 3, it is called Bedrohliche Vergangenheit, which translates to Threatening Past. And this is the story of Rick and Ella. Rick is a former Marine and he is now a best-selling author. He writes crime stories. And Ella is an elementary teacher and her brother is in danger. He was imprisoned and will probably be sentenced to death because he's still in the Marines, and he is confronted with the accusation that he illegally dealt with weapons, and he said he did it, but her sister don't believe it. Rick, who worked with him in the Marines, also doesn't believe it. So they start to investigate, and find out that this is not the only time something like this happened, and that this is a much bigger case. The NCIS is already investigating it, but do they do a good job or have they something to hide? We need to find out, or I need to find out, because someone already attempted to murder Ella. So I was glad Rick could save her. And of course, there's already tension between the characters. You can feel that they are drawn to each other, even if they both think, well, we should investigate about the brother in danger first before we do everything romantic. And of course, we have also the overall plot with the old murder case from Rick, Ash, and Paul's childhood. So, a lot going on, but in a good way. I really like this book so far. As I said, the first half was a super quick read, and I can't wait to continue reading. So, I will stop this update here and talk to you later. And I finished it, the story of Rick and Ella, and I liked it. I liked it more than I expected. Like book two, I haven't had big expectation on the series, but the books were better than I expected, and I liked them. And we also had a conclusion now for not only the book plot, but also the main plot for the whole series. So, who murdered Iris? They finally put it together, and I had an idea who did it in the middle of book two. I can't say if I had an idea while reading book one because that was years ago, but I had my suspicion now. And honestly, not one time I thought somebody else could be the suspect. And I was right in the end, so for me it was no surprise at all. And the suspect thinks he's so clever with everything he did in these books, but honestly, he's super dumb because everything he did here, from the first attempt of murder in book one, every single thing made the characters think about why they are victims now. Everything he did in these books leaded to the characters thinking about what happened in the past. They wouldn't have spent a single thought on it without the murder attempts and everything else. So you made them aware that something has happened, that they maybe saw something, and you created your own downfall here, which, in my opinion, was a good thing because there was more behind it than we knew before. And it is good that he is probably in prison now. But of course, we also had a conclusion on the plot of book three. So, the suspense plot around Ella's brother. In the end, it all happened a bit too fast, in my opinion. And the mix of main plot and book plot didn't really mix together. In a row of chapters, we only had book plot. In other chapters, we only had main plot for the series, which bothered me a bit. But all in all, as I said, it was okay. I liked the book, I liked the characters and the tension between the characters, how they came together, how we had no miscommunication, and they were really open to each other. I appreciated that. And now I am super curious about book four in the series, which I won't read in this vlog, but for the next final chapter vlog, because it isn't on my 26 for 2026 list. I explained that before, but something's going on with his ex-wife. Something's not right. There must be a bigger reason why she hesitates to visit him and the son, and I can't wait to see what it is. So I will definitely continue the series and will finish it with book 4. But as I said, not here. And the next and last book that was planned for this video was King of Scars. And as you can see, I already started it, and I am also halfway through, which normally would mean I would give you an update now. But you have to wait a little bit to see the update. I will film it today after this clip. But as planned, this will be the last book of the vlog, because on the weekend we had February 14th, and Valentine's Day isn't a thing for me. But suddenly I thought, why not read a romance book on this day? And I did. Also, of course, from my 26 for 2026 list. It is Charade by Naire Dawn, the first book in the game series. And this cover did me dirty, and the title. This is a complete red herring, because I thought, based on cover and title, that I will read a spicy slash erotic romance. But this is new adult contemporary romance. And I realized that pretty quickly when we had Cheyenne, our 19-year-old female main character, found her boyfriend cheating on her, and she broke up with him. She told him, yeah, when you have somebody else, I also have somebody else, so don't worry about it. She doesn't have somebody else, but she's a pretty quick thinker. So she speaks to a random guy on campus, Colton, with the total bad boy aura. And she wants him to play her fake boyfriend. She even wants him to pay for it. And Colton, he needs the money because his mother is sick. She has cancer and she is dying. So he already sells drugs on the side, even if he doesn't like to do it. But he needs to make quick money to pay all the bills for his mother. So Cheyenne comes right on time with her offer. And the first few pages or more chapters are such an on and off thing between these two characters, because Cheyenne decides she doesn't want him to be her fake boyfriend when he makes some jokes about her being a princess. But 5 minutes later, she decides she wants him to be the fake boyfriend. But when they settle everything, it got better, and I really enjoyed the story, which is why I read the whole book in one sitting. So no halftime update, just the full update for the whole story here. I was positively surprised by the fact that we had no miscommunication at all between the characters. This story is from 2012, so 14-year-old at this point, and miscommunication was pretty common in books back then and is now, and I really hate this topic. And we also had no third act breakup. Congratulations to that, because I also hate that. I'm super annoyed by it, because most of the times A chat between the characters, honesty and opening up would help to solve the problem, but these characters haven't had the problem at all. They were open and honest the whole time, which I really appreciated. And I also shed a few tears by the end of the book when Colton's mother died because of her cancer. So, even if this story was not what I expected at all, I really liked it in the end. And with that, we now have to talk about the fact that with Charade, I started a new series, which I hate because in theory, I need to add this series now to my list of series that I need to continue. And that would mean that the number will go up for the next final chapter video, which I hate. So there is only one solution to that, and that is to read book 2 and 3 right away to finish the series. So let's do that. Let's also read these books. The good thing is they aren't very thick, so around 250 pages each. And I think I can do this for this video because as of today, I have exactly 2 weeks left until this video comes out. So I will continue reading now and I will talk to you probably after I finished book 2 because I know myself, I read these books super quickly, I inhale them, and I will probably read them in one sitting. And I've finished book 2 now, Facade, the story of Adrian and Delaney. We already know Adrian from the first book. He's Colton's best friend. And well, the first 2 chapters were trauma dumping because in the first chapter from Adrian's POV, we learn that he's drinking a lot, that he's partying a lot, but not because he likes it. It's almost the exact opposite, but it is his only way to forget to don't feel his emotions. After he lost 4-year-old Ashton 4 years ago, we don't really know how they are related to each other. I don't know if Ashton was his little brother or his nephew, but he lost him, and Adrian was right there. He feels responsible for the accident that happened and for Ashton's death, and he can't really handle that. He's so deep in grieving that he doesn't want to feel at all. And on the other side, we have Delaney. 4 years ago, she found out that her dad is not the person she thought he is because the family found out the dad is addicted to gambling, that the father had a girlfriend on the side, so cheating on the mother, and he was the driver in a car accident and killed a little boy. So I made the connections here. Delaney's father killed Ashton, and now Delaney comes to the city. She wants to talk to Adrian about everything that happened 4 years ago because Adrian left everything behind, also his big sister, and haven't talked to her since then. And Delaney wants to help now. She wants to repair the relationship between Adrian and his sister. He wants to ask for apology for what her dad did. So hopefully they can both go on in life and start to heal. Oh, and not to forget that Delaney's mother is in hospital now because she tried to kill herself now, the fourth time in 4 years after everything that happened with the dad. And it's all due to depression. But of course, it is not her fault, it is not the dad's fault. It is all Delaney's fault, which makes no sense, but it hurts the whole family and even Delaney's older brother, Maddox, because he also feels responsible for everything. But we come back to that later because I think book 3 is about him. But for now, we stay with Facade. And when I got deeper into the story, I got super annoyed because I praised book 1 for having no miscommunication, no third act breakup, and when I was halfway into Facade, I needed to take a break because of miscommunication that led to a third act breakup. I mean, I get it. I get that it is hard for Delaney to talk with Adrian about everything that happened, and that it only gets harder with every day that they grow closer to each other. But at least when they start making out, he has a right to know who she really is. Because this reveal will bring up a lot of emotions, a lot of trauma. It is super triggering. And starting a relationship with him when he doesn't know that is not right to me. That was a thing that really pissed me off. But in the end, I cried a lot about the story, about the emotions that came up after the big reveal. And honestly, the last 15-20% of the story, 5 stars. And even the parts before, they were really honest about their feelings for each other, what they are ready to give, where they draw the line in this moment. I loved that. But the miscommunication and the third act breakup, not a fan of that, but still really liked this book. I was positively surprised by that. So I am intrigued to read book 3 now, which, yes, is about Maddox, Delaney's older brother. So, also a lot of trauma in this. Probably not only for him, but also for the female main character. We'll see, and I will update you later on this book. And I finished the last book of the trilogy now, Masquerade by Charade Dawn, the story of Bee and Maddox. So we already know about his trauma and what he has to fight with in life. So the trauma dumping on this side was not surprising, but we also have Bee, our female main character, and she was kidnapped when she was 5 years old, 4 years old, one of the two. And she grew up with parents that kidnapped her until she was 13 or 14 when everything came out and she was reunited with her birth family. So she is still super conflicted on this whole situation because normally she isn't allowed to love the parents who grew her up. So the persons who kidnapped her, but she also has difficulties to let her birth family back into her life, to love them again, because there is always the fear to lose them again. So, like in the books before, a lot of trauma dumping in the beginning of the story to set everything up. But, like in book one, no miscommunication, which I love and appreciate. I'm a big fan of that, of open communication. Even if you don't want to talk about everything, you don't need to open up to have no miscommunication, but you can be honest about not wanting to share things and wanting to keep them for yourself, at least for the moment. So, thumbs up for that. And I really loved the whole topic of tattooing, of getting into the job, what is necessary to follow your dreams. And Bee and Maddox worked perfectly together, even if they had their problems with each other or more with themselves while being together, because they don't want to come close to each other. But they had a one night stand before starting working together, and that complicates things because the attraction is still there, even if they both want to deny it in the beginning. And I really loved how this relationship developed over time through the whole story, how the characters grew and changed, and also how the other characters from book one and two were integrated in the third book. So I am positively surprised by the whole games trilogy, and I can recommend reading them. But if you have looked up the series on Amazon or Goodreads, which is where I did my research, you saw that there is a fourth book in the series. But I talked of a trilogy here, which is confusing. I get that. I was also confused because the German versions were marketed as a trilogy, and I also saw in the book titles for the English versions that the word trilogy was mentioned, but a fourth book? I was confused, so I did research here. The fourth book is called Rush, and it is not really a fourth book of the series. I don't know why it is listed like that, because the title doesn't fit the vibe of the trilogy, and the characters for Rush doesn't appear in the former books here. But for me, it doesn't make a difference in the end, because either way, I have finished the series now, because I have read Rush, the book that I mentioned, years ago when it was published in Germany, because here Rush was marketed as a standalone, which is why I've already read it. I can remember this is a gay sports romance, but I can't say more than that after all this time, except that I liked the story. So, as I said, either way, I have finished the game series now and can finally update you on the final book of this vlog. Here we go, the last book for the vlog. I showed you this a few clips before. I am halfway through King of Scars by Lee Bardugo, the first book of this duology, which is the last duology of the Grishaverse. So I plan to finish that soon, but like the Hardbase series, not in this vlog, because Rule of Wolves is not on my 26 for 2026 list. So I will read it for my next final chapter vlog. But let's talk about King of Scars first. These books are all super shiny in this vlog. I don't know what's going on with it, but this is the story of Nikolai, We already know this character from the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and I was a bit confused when I started this book because I read Shadow and Bone a few years ago and I couldn't remember Nikolai being a monster. So I was surprised by that, but my buddy partner Julia went back to the last book of the Shadow and Bone trilogy and could educate me why this happened. So I was really glad that I'm not reading the book alone and that we can discuss what's happening here. We have three main POVs here. The first one is, of course, Nikolai. Another one is Zoya. She is Nikolai's right hand and is there to protect him, but also to protect everyone else from Nikolai and his monster side. Together, they manage to lead Ravka, which is not that easy because could the monster side of Nikolai be the first hint that the Darkling is maybe not dead, that he comes back? Because since the first time Nikolai changed into a monster at night, there are also some things happening in Ravka that nobody can explain. So they not only try to lead Ravka, they also try to find a solution for what's happening to Nikolai, and they try to find out what's happening with the Darkling, maybe. But we also have another main POV, which is Nina, a character we know from Shadow and Bone and also from the Six of Crow duology. And I'm very glad that we see her again. She went back to Ravka after everything that happened in the Six of Crow duology. But now she is back in Fjerda. She is spying in the name of Nikolai. She has a mission there, and they all also need to find out what's happening with the carewood, so how they are created, and if they can prevent that from happening. So I really like where the story is going. I also like the chapters by itself, but halfway through, not really much happened plot wise so far, because everything I told you is everything that happened in the first half of the book so far. Of course, we have a lot of details to this, a lot of other characters that are involved in the story. So don't worry, I haven't told you everything about it, just the main premise of the story. And after the last chapter of the first part, I am really intrigued to continue now to see what's happening in the second half of the book, if they are right with some theories and hopes. And I am interested to see what will be the romance of this story, because there have to be one. There are vibes between Zoya and Nikolai, but I don't really think they will end up together. And then we have Nina there. So let's see. I will continue reading and I will talk to you after I finished King of Scars. And last update for this vlog, I finished King of Scars now. I think I was pretty clear after the first half that I wasn't a big fan of the storytelling here. But the second half of the story, I was instantly intrigued. I inhaled the second half. It was super entertaining, super intriguing. We had a lot of action, a lot of emotions, people I didn't trust. And maybe I was right about it, maybe not. I don't want to spoil it. But I really, really loved the characters of the story. Nikolai, Zoya, and Nina, the main characters of King of Scars. There is so much depth of these characters, so much character development, and I'm such a big fan of that. So, in the end, King of Scars is the book I like the most in the Grishaverse so far. I like it more than the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I even like it more than the Six of Crows duology. And I can't wait to continue the story with Rule of Wolves. And I said it before, I will do this for the next final chapter vlog because the vlog is over now. But I'm very, very glad that I didn't give up on this story. And I don't think I can tell you much more without spoilers. So you just have to believe me that the second half is much, much better than the first half. And with every end of a chapter, I was annoyed that I had to switch POVs because I wanted to continue that storyline. But on the other side, I also wanted to continue the other storylines. Not forget the storyline about Isaac. I was also such a fan of that. I liked the twists and turns, the problems he had with his new role, and I think that was all super relatable. And I hope we see more of him in Rule of Wolves. I can't wait to see what Nina is planning in the moment. I know she has a plan, but I don't know how she wants to accomplish what she wants to do alone. But maybe she finds a lot of other Grecians to join her after the little twist at the end of King of Scars. We'll see. And I also can't wait to see what's happening with Nikolai and Zoya. Will we get a romance there? And I also want to know more about what's happening in politics because right now it can go either way. We can have peace and alliances, but probably we can also get into war. So, my predictions for the next book in this duology: a lot of action, a lot of emotions, a lot of depth and drama, and hopefully a lot of twists and turns. You will see in my next final chapter vlog. But for now, that's it. And we end this vlog with 6 books read. 3 were planned, 3 were not, but it was a super, super successful vlog with all these reads. And I liked all of them. So, out of the 26 books for 2026, I have now 6 books read, 20 left to go, which means only 2 books left for each month of the year. I think I can handle that. And you can follow me on this journey throughout the year. Please tell me in the comments if you also do this challenge or if you have read any of these books. Like this video if you wanna follow my channel, and I will see you next time. Bye!